It falls to me to introduce Jeffrey G Marsacci, who was born in Fort Worth, Texas, but raised in Lincoln, Rhode Island, and graduated from Mount St. Charles Academy High School. He graduated from Hofstra University with an undergraduate degree in business administration, and 2 years later earned his law degree from the same school. He also earned a certificate degree in nonprofit management from Duke University in 2004, and his office was honored by the City of Raleigh with the 2011 Human Relations Business Award. He and his wife Kathleen live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and volunteer in the community, most recently as members of the Civitan organization. Both are recipients of the President's Call to Service Award through the Points of Lights Foundation for completing more than 4,000 hours of service during their lifetime. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you and start the presentation.
Thank you, David. Probably about 4 years ago now, but I mean, it could have been yesterday. This just happens so frequently. I was sitting down with Mom, her son, and daughter-in-law, and they were looking to do Medicaid planning because Mom was on a path to end up needing that type of long-term care. And it turned out that her deceased husband, he had passed on a few years before, was a veteran, and he needed assisted living care. And they ended up spending just about everything down, selling the house when he went into care, and then Mom had to move in with the son. And they had heard about this veterans pension benefit that could have helped, but they simply called the VA and said, "We heard about this benefit. Do we qualify for it?" And they asked, "Well, what's your income?" "Oh, I'm sorry, that's too much." And they just put it out of their minds. Looking back, because of the expenses that he had for assisted living care, yeah, he would have qualified. That was thousands of dollars a year that could have helped eliminate the draining of their own resources, and certainly looking at the numbers just roughly, they wouldn't have had to have sold the house. So this is a benefit that's out there for veterans, and it's designed specifically for that assisted living care, but before there's the potential for nursing home. That's really what it's designed for. So the question becomes, who's eligible for this? And that's what I write about in my book, The Veterans Long-Term Care Solution. So there are 4 main tests, and in trying to keep to that 20 minutes, I'm going to just be very brief about it. The first one is service. Did you serve during the appropriate times in the branches of the military? And that is 1 day during a declared war of active duty. Didn't have to be in combat, didn't have to be out of the country. You could have served the entire time period in the United States, but that service still works. Now, there are lots of different gaps and loopholes and exceptions. You wouldn't count the merchant Marines as having military service, but during World War II, the merchant Marines that were specifically in the Atlantic where the U-boats were going after them, that counted. So there are lots of different exceptions to meet that service test. Second test, is there a need? Do they need help with at least 2 activities of daily living? Eating, bathing, dressing, transferring, toileting, the major things that you may need some assistance with. Well, if they reach that, okay, then there's that need. But then we come to the 2 big ones, and this is where a lot of the planning comes in. Income and assets. Well, income, in order to qualify for the Veterans Pension Benefit, your income minus unreimbursed medical expenses. If that falls below 0, that's it. The pension automatically kicks in and the dollar amount is yours to assist with that. So what is unreimbursed medical expenses? It's a lot of the stuff that's considered long-term care as opposed to rehabilitative. That's the stuff that health insurance covers. Well, if it's not covered, if you have a doctor that's stating you do need this assisted living care and you need to be in this facility, then everything, room, board, all of that counts as a medical expense. And in some of these assisted living facilities, that can get to be quite expensive to the point where it is more than what your income is coming in and you're draining down assets. That can be a big, big help to a family. But then there's the assets. You're only allowed to have so much in assets and still qualify for this benefit. You're allowed to have a home, a vehicle, personal items, and the current amount is $138,489. So as long as you're below that, you've spent it down or converted it, then you're going to qualify. Now, it used to be that you could get below that amount, or the amount back then, by simply giving it to your kids. You could give it away and you can qualify. Well, the VA changed the rules a few years back. You couldn't have given it away within the past 3 years and still qualify. Has anybody here heard of like the 5-year rule for Medicaid? Well, it's 3 years for this particular benefit. But meeting that asset test, it's not that you have to spend everything down. And that's one of the big points that I cover in the book, that there are a lot of different things that we can do to rearrange, convert, or what I call filtering assets to still preserve them and qualify for this benefit. And a lot of these same techniques that we do could also eventually be there if Medicaid is needed for nursing home care down the line. One thing, I call it the two-trust solution. That's the most basic. We set up 2 irrevocable trusts. One is for real estate and the other is for liquid assets. Move them in. 3 years later, those assets are considered off the books and you would qualify. Filtering and converting. This is one of the biggest misconceptions around all of this type of planning, whether it's for the Veterans Pension Benefit or Medicaid or other programs. You don't have to spend all of the money on care. You just have to make sure you have the right types of assets. One story, I want to make sure I'm not going to go over in time because we're going to give David a little bit of time to speak too. It was a widow of a veteran. So she would have qualified based on her husband's service. She was already in a lower level of assisted living care. She had about $340,000, and another asset she had was about $60,000 in a life insurance policy that had a death benefit of $400,000. So the VA and Medicaid would look at that and say, well, you've got $400,000. That's too much. Well, okay, what did we do? She was fortunate enough that her daughter, who was also her power of attorney, and her husband owned a house worth about $500,000. Well, she's allowed to have a house. She's allowed to have a primary residence. So that's $400,000 worth of stuff that she could buy into her daughter's house. But there was also that insurance policy. They didn't want to just cash out $60,000 when there was a $400,000 death benefit that could go to the kids when she passed on. So the son-in-law bought the policy for $60,000. We set up those 2 trusts, had it all set so that if mom passed on, it went to her 4 kids, which was exactly what her estate plan was. And so now she has $400,000 in cash, buys 80% of her daughter and son-in-law's house. So they're now all on the deed, 3 of them joint with a right of survivorship, those percentages. And what does daughter do? Well, look, technically my husband and I, we sold that, it's our money, but We're going to take it and we're going to put it into that irrevocable family trust because morally, that's mom's money. That's her legacy that she wants to leave to her children. So now there's $400,000 in that trust. First transaction, they buy the life insurance policy back from the son-in-law for $60,000. And now everything has been filtered through with no 3-year look-back period. We applied and she qualified right away. There are ways to qualify without having to go broke. Now this is, obviously I can't go into all of the ins and outs and the things that are in the book. I also do have an online course, and Janelle's got something to hand out if you're interested. You know, once David's done talking, or you can just hand that out. But what I want to do is now turn it over to David because he's got his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the VA with this benefit and many other benefits, and I think it would be good for David to come up. So let's
Thanks,
keep it
Jeff.
together for David.
One thing you'll gather from listening to Jeff, this VA benefit is the least known, this pension benefit is the least known, most misunderstood benefit the VA offers to veterans. 90% of what the VA does is compensation for service connected. You got shot, you fell off a truck, you hurt your back, it's affecting you today. That's compensation for service connected. It goes from 10% to 90%. This benefit Jeff is talking about, the very name is confusing because it's called pension, pension aid and attendance. And right there you could raise your hand and say, well, I didn't retire from the military. Why would I even possibly qualify for this? The benefit actually goes back to the founding of the country. I have a certificate on my wall to my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother who was the widow of a War of 1812 veteran, and she got a $4 a month benefit as the widow. The principle is what Jeff outlined is that if you're a veteran that served somewhere in the world, don't have to have been shot at or been in combat, but you served back, you know, they don't pay much today, they certainly don't pay much, you know, back then, but you did it, you got out, you went on with your life, you took care of yourself, your wife took care of you, and now, look, you reach a stage in your life where you need help. You don't have to be an invalid, you don't have to be bedridden, but you need help with, as Jeff said, some activities of ordinary daily living. You got a wobbly gait, problem is with your generation is, I don't want no help, I don't need no help, and I don't want to be a burden. But you know, the fact of the matter is, your doctor probably would say it'd be a good idea. Your wife's taking care of you, certainly. If she wasn't around, you probably would need somebody in case I've fallen and I can't get up. So you need some help. You're a veteran, or you're the widow of a veteran, you need some help, and now years in life, you have to start paying for that or need outside help. The VA's got this benefit. $1,300 a month for a widow, $2,400 a month for a married veteran, and $2,000 a month for a single veteran. So it's a good chunk of change. And don't let, as Jeff said, the VA's motto of, they don't even understand the benefit, by the way, because they work in compensation, right? So you call the VA, and one thing I don't like about this business is he said, you said, they said, I talked to the VA, and they said I don't qualify. They should have gotten the benefit 5 years ago, but because they didn't know the things that Jeff can provide you, they should have got the benefit. And that's water under the bridge. You don't go backwards. But there's a number of ways to meet if you got those basic needs, you served, you need help, and you're going to have to start paying for some care, you can get over this asset and income test. A number of different ways that are covered in that online course that you mentioned, that I highly recommend you pick up that little flyer, or the book, pick up the flyer, and look at that and understand, wow, maybe I could qualify. If not now, if you don't die, you're going to get older. So it will happen, okay? So we're here to answer some questions for you. We'll be here, the online course. Yeah, we'll be here. But pay attention to those benefits that few people know about.
Very good.
Yeah.